My name is Liz, and this is my video out. I'm Liz Bouk, and I grew up in Rochester, New York. I grew up in a very traditional kind of environment. I want to say conservative Christian, even though we were part of an ECLA church, so it was welcoming to gays and lesbians at the time, but I didn't know anyone who was gay growing up. It was very much, the mother stays home and raises the kids, and then when the kids are in 4th or 5th grade, the mother then has, society's permission to go back to work. And most families had, 2 or 3 children in my high school. There were also a lot of Italian Catholics in my town. So a kind of conservative but very family vibe, but not oppressive in any way. I knew that something was wrong or missing, or that I was very different from a very early age. Kind of separated myself at a young age, because I didn't really know what was going on. I mean, for example, my dad was a Boy Scout leader, and I really wanted to be in Boy Scouts, but girls weren't allowed in Girl Scouts. And so I was in Girl Scouts, and I got a gold award, but I was always really annoyed with the other girls wanting to bring their hairdryer on the camping trips. I remember that we were hiking together. I must have been in 4th or 5th grade, and there was a gigantic tree that had fallen across a creek, and I just scrambled up and went across it, and some of the other girls were a little nervous, and I remember just standing in the middle of the log, balancing there and taking their hand and helping people over. And looking back, it's like, oh, that leadership style in our society is gendered. I mean, I wish that we lived in a genderless world where I wouldn't have to say I'm a girl or a boy, and that everyone could just be people. But looking back, I really had to choose, and I was a girl, and I couldn't join Boy Scouts. I think the biggest challenge I had as a teenager was, I looked like a tall blonde woman, and so I had a lot of straight men that were interested in me in high school. And I dated a couple people, and I just wasn't really into it. But I knew that according to society, I was a woman, and I had to get married. Sex before marriage was a little taboo. So I actually ended up marrying my high school sweetheart when I was 21. I was still in undergrad, and we went to senior prom together in high school. And we got married really young, because that was my best option to protect myself. I didn't know from what, but it was to protect myself from my sexuality, I guess. I was like, I don't really want to be wearing this dress, and I wore red lipstick, and that part seemed a little bit odd. I looked back at some wedding photos right before I came out to myself, and my partner and I were going through them, and we threw out a lot of them, actually. But I was looking through and say, how do these make me feel? It was before I knew what was missing, and there's this one picture of me with all of the guys. And I had this gigantic smile on my face that's really genuine. And I was like, something about this speaks to me. And I kept it and put it out on the counter for a couple days. We are still together. He's a straight man who is now obviously slightly queered and open to supporting me. He's my best friend, and we've been together since I was 17 and he was 18. And we really know each other. So we're trying to make it work. We're being creative and having a lot of discussions about ourselves and what we need and who we are. We talk about quite a bit, actually, is this still working? Are we happy? What is best for each of us? And we have these discussions all the time in the past year. Are we going to stay together? We don't know. But then we keep coming back to wait, but these things really work about us. And I really like this about you, and this and this. But it's an open conversation. I have thought many times it would be easier just to walk away and start a new life. But there are things that I really value about my partner, and we value about each other. And so we're trying to make it work. And no matter what, we've grown up together, so he'll always be my best friend. We also have a 9-year-old child as well. And he's been one of my biggest supporters. I had a very kind of private moment after a yoga class. I came home and looked in the mirror and was like, oh my gosh, I'm a dude, I'm in the wrong body. And I was like, this makes so much sense. This is why I was unhappy about the wedding photos. I had bought some bike gloves like a couple weeks before that, and they were men's gloves, and they didn't fit quite right because my hands weren't big enough. And I was riding my bike every day to and from yoga thinking, God, what's wrong with these gloves? Why don't they fit? And I found myself getting really angry over a pair of biking gloves, you know? And so just a bunch of little pieces finally came together. I called him and was like, oh, I have to tell you something kind of important. I was like, yeah, like I'm in the wrong body. Like, I'm a dude. And he was like, oh. I was like, okay. I was like, well, I love you no matter what. I know. And then pretty quickly he was like, well, if you do decide to physically transition, you know, like I'm straight and I don't know if it would work to stay together sexually, but I'll be by your side no matter what. And that was just, it was complete honesty from day one of me coming out. But he had watched me struggle for so many years trying to find myself as a woman and it not working. So he was also, I think, relieved. Definitions are really tricky because definitions don't really tell us anything. Right?
Sure.
Like, what does it mean to be a man? Well, I'm clearly defining myself as wanting to be what society expects a man to be because we live in a binary society, so I've got to pick man or woman. I mean, now of course you can also pick non-binary and a number of other options, but most of the world, you go places, there are 2 bathrooms, something you got to do every day, male or female. You know, you fill out forms very often, male or female. So, like, if I have to survive in this world, like, that is my place. I don't even know how to really define man. I mean, a lot of the definition of what is a man in this question has to do with how you view yourself in society, and we all have to survive, and we all have to, you know, work jobs and have social interactions, and how we want to be seen, you know. And so I see myself as a man in society and in my daily personal life. Luckily, I live in New York City and in New York State, and so I've changed everything legally. So last September, I got my new driver's license. I changed my name to Liz. It used to be Elizabeth Anna. So Liz is a transitioning name. I eventually might pick a male name. But I have a driver's license that says I'm a man. I got my new passport back. It says I'm a man. I changed my health insurance. So I feel so lucky to be living in New York and to be able to do that because those things are all so affirming, and it takes away some of the dysphoria and some of the harder days where some places it's ma'am or miss, or people are holding doors for me or doing things that make me feel really uncomfortable, and they're seeing me as a woman clearly, and just having this piece of paper, well, not paper, but the ID in my pocket is just, it's really empowering. And of course, New York City has a lot of places that are safe spaces and super supportive. I mean, I just want to say, like, after growing up in a more conservative environment, that, like, when you're in that environment, that's your reality, right? Like, you don't know that there are other places that you could go, and, like, someone that looks like me, who looks on the outside like a tall blonde woman, can walk into, like, almost any men's bathroom in New York City, and no one cares. No one says a word. Sometimes they even use the urinal now, which is crazy. No one blinks an eye. So to people who are in other places, just know that there are other, like, environments and other realities out there. Don't feel trapped, you know. Reach out and find people on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, social media that you can connect with, you know, so that you can survive in your other reality and have encouragement. There are a lot of different letters in LGBTQ. And each group quite often has things that are really important to them that they're fighting for, and that's a very important part of our identity. It's important for me to identify as a trans man. It's important for people to identify as who they are. But I've seen some time that those identities and those agendas get in the way of supporting each other. And so what I think the community needs most is to keep their narrow lens on their focus, but then also have a wide lens and a generosity of spirit towards each other, towards every letter in the LGBTQ and plus, IA, etc., and just try to keep that kind of mindset as we move forward and try to work together as much as possible. Yeah, there's a lot of things in the world right now that are not hopeful, or that one could view as not hopeful in our current political climate. But I've found that when I meet people and tell them my story, like 99% of people are supportive and want to change what's going on. And it's not just here in New York. I've worked in Texas and in Florida, and sometimes I'm the first trans person that they've met, and they're like, oh, you're in the men's bathroom. And I'm like, yep, I am. And we start to have these conversations, and yeah, I mean, it gives me hope because when I go to more conservative places, people are open-minded, and people that I work with and who I get to know really don't have a problem. Now, can they use my pronouns correctly all the time? No. Do they make mistakes? Yes. So I also have to have a kind of generosity of spirit with them and meet them where they are, and they meet me where I am, and then eventually I feel like we move forward together, you know, and then they use my pronouns and we move on, and they've met a trans person. So for me, it's been seeing these little individual glimmers, and they kind of counter some of the other dysphoric moments that I have. Look, I'm a person, and I want you to look and see my soul. Look past my exterior and see a person there. Thank you for the legislation you've helped pass, for doing things like having it be possible for me to have a driver's license that says I'm a male. These things bring me great joy. My favorite part about being me is not having to pretend to be a girl anymore. I used to present really, really femme, and it's just so nice to go out of the house and just have the freedom to be myself and not feel any pressure to be somebody that I'm not. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. So just look right into the camera and say, "My name is Liz, and this is my video out."
No, you do that at the end.
Yeah.
What can I do? I want to do 3 takes.
Yeah, do it. You do it however many times you want.
My name is Liz, and this is my video out. Don't use that. You say my name is? That's how it starts?
Sure. How do you want to?
I'm Liz, and this is my video out.